All righty, we are back live with Charm City Tennis Talk with my boy Landon. Look, we had a little technical difficulties, but just to dive back into Section 3, right? We got two USA versus USA matchups, right? Taylor Fritz versus Brooksby, and of course Ben Shelton versus Nakashima. Now, Landon, I know you got a lot to say about Ben Shelton, so I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, so diving into that Taylor Fritz match real quick. I mean, Taylor Fritz versus Jenson Brooksby. Jenson Brooksby is coming back after his first match since 2023 because, as you know, he faced a suspension for, what they found him guilty for. And his last matchup, he won his first two matchups in 2023 at the Australian Open in the main draw. Then he lost to Tommy Paul. Now, he's a big underdog against Taylor Fritz. Rightfully so. This is his first matchup back in almost 16 months. But he has beat Taylor Fritz before. They played in 2021 at the U.S. Open, and he beat him 3-1. And that was pretty much a pick-up. Fast forward a few years, things are totally different with Fritz making the U.S. Open final last year and having the year he did. So I think that's going to be a fun matchup, but I do see Fritz rolling in that. And yeah, as you talked about Ben Shelton versus Nakashima, I mean, Ben Shelton's a guy I've been following since, his last season in college. And I was never into following guys in college, but I thought it was pretty cool how the ATP Tour allows college guys to play and get ranking points. So I started following Ben through the ITF, through the Challenger Tour, and just watched him build his way up and would see him, Challenger finals, would watch him, and it was cool to see. His game has really progressed well. He's got a lot of power. He's got a lot of upside. And I think this is a crucial year for him, just along, like I said, with Fritz. And we'll see what happens with that. But with Ben Shelton, this is a big year for him. But he's he's got to keep getting better because he's got all these guys coming for him. And Nakashima is just another guy that he's a young baller. They're only a year apart. But that's going to be a good matchup. I would like to see Ben Shelton, have a good run. But we'll see. A Ben Shelton Taylor Fritz matchup would be a good one for tennis and a good one for American tennis.
Absolutely. Yeah, super exciting section there, and head into Section 4, man. Love to talk about this Andre Rublev versus João Fonseca, man. I mean, this guy Fonseca seems to be one of the brightest prospects on tour at the moment, and the fact that we see him in his first Grand Slam is truly historical in a match where he's only a plus 130 underdog versus a guy in Rublev who's number 7 in the world, number 9 in the world. So I think it's a testament to just how good Fonseca is and the amount of potential he has as just 18 years old. But if there's one guy or a few guys in this section that I really have my eye on, certainly you have a former Australian Open champion in Stan the Man Wawrinka, right? I mean, this is a guy since 2006, outside of Djokovic, Nadal, and Federer. There have only been two guys that have won the Australian Open since 2006, and that's Stan Wawrinka and certainly Jannik Sinner last year. So, you can never count out Stan the Man, but certainly there's another dark horse in this section who I really like, and that's Alexei Popyrin. I mean, this is a guy who's got a very well-rounded game. He's improved tremendously in 2024, and this is a guy that has all the upside in the world. So I'm really eager to see that matchup. Certainly, you've got Daniil Medvedev in that section, who you never count out, right? A guy that's been to 3 Australian Open finals, right? He's knocked on the door many times. But yeah, man, very exciting second here, and obviously we can't forget about a guy in Francis Tiafoe who has his ups and downs, but could certainly see a matchup versus Tiafoe and Fonseca in the third round. So really eager to hear your thoughts on this section, Landon, and see perhaps if Rublev can make a run through Fonseca or not.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, talking about Fonseca gets me smiling. This is a guy that, since being such a big tennis fan, and after all these years, I just like to follow the up and comers. And every year when I'm looking at the Australian Open draw, or any Grand Slam draw, I'm always following, the boys and girls, seeing, the young up and comers. Sometimes those boys and girls are able to qualify for the main draws, and sometimes they're even playing in the main draws. With that being said, Fonseca's a guy that, I found last year, and he was playing in the I believe it was the U.S. Open Finals, and he was playing against Lerner Tien, and that's another guy we'll get to in a second in the next section over here. But yeah, Joey Fonseca, he had a strong year end, and he won the next gen, and then he won another. He just won a challenger event in Australia. So before this, and then coming off of that, after that challenger event, he went 3-0. He went 3-0, winning 6 straight sets in qualifying. Big favorite in all of those, and I expected him to qualify. Not that it's easy, but you got to win these matchups. And then first round, he draws Andre Rublev. Now, Andre Rublev's a guy that sometimes I'm like, wow, he's unbeatable. I've felt like that before. But this guy has a temper. This guy, if you start attacking his weaknesses, you're going to get to him. And once you get him into his head, he's going to get there. So when this matchup came out, I looked at the odds. Juan Fonseca was plus 300. So he was a 3-1. I'm like, wow, that's wild to me. Yesterday, I was looking at the odds to win the Australian Open. As a qualifier, being 18, he is plus 6,000, and Rublev's plus 7,500. So I looked today, and he went all the way to a plus 130. So it's a pretty nice. That was a pretty big swing. You don't really see that. So that means a lot of people are pretty high on him, and rightfully so, because this guy, in my opinion, in about 2 to 3 years, he's going to be ranked 4 or 5 in these Grand Slams. So he's going to be one of the top guys we can continuously see. That's got a good shot of making the quarterfinals, semifinals. So we'll see how his game translates. It's really exciting to see. He's only 18, but this would be a big first round matchup. And if he wins this, I couldn't see why he couldn't win the next one. Stan Wawrinka, that's a guy that I love, and he only gets better as the tournaments go on. He's won this before, so that's a guy. He's an underdog, but he could come out of that too. An interesting matchup. What I would like to see is Tiafoe versus Fonseca, but we'll see. I'm very excited for that first round matchup. Out of all the first round matchups, that's one of the top ones for sure. But as you said, also Gali Paparin. He had a strong year end last year, and it being in Australia, he's going to have the crowd behind him. So we'll see how that plays out, but definitely a session to be excited for and keep an eye out for. So
absolutely. And to talk about another prospect hidden in there, you've got your boy Lerner Tien as a minus 650 favorite in his first round matchup. So that's a very likely matchup where we see a Lerner Tien versus Daniil Medvedev in round 2. So really excited.
Yes, that would be a good matchup. And actually, I was looking at the section. I was kind of just overlooked that, but I was talking about Lerner. Yeah, Lerner. Just speaking about him real quick, he's another guy that I've been following. And if you follow ITF, it's you have ATP tours. Then you have below that, you have the challenger level, which all these guys in the challenger can still make it. And then you have the ITF, which is just lower level, and all those people can still qualify too. Lerner was just coming onto the scene last year, obviously being one of the top junior players, and he went on a streak where he won 5 tournaments in a row, I believe, on the ITF circuit, where he went 30 match winning streak. And I watched him just dominate the ITF circuit, and then seeing him play on the challenger level was pretty exciting too. And now seeing it translate to the ATP tour level, the Grand Slam level, that's a matchup I'm looking forward to. Would love to see second round matchup and between him and Medvedev. We probably should see that. But Medvedev's a guy, he's in 2020, I looked at him like the most dominant player. He's definitely a guy that can make him run. I would never discount Medvedev. When it comes to Sinner or comes to these top players, that's going to be his challenge. But look, Medvedev could do it. This is a big year for him, and I don't see why not. So we'll see how that section plays out, but very excited for that section. Got 2 young prospects and some good players in there. So
1,000%. Yeah, man. If you look at the field outside of Djokovic, a guy in Medvedev is the most seasoned when it comes to experience in this tournament, right? This is a guy that's made a finals 3 times in the Australian Open and has all the potential, man. This is a guy that absolutely could take Sinner to 5 sets, 100%. So Really intriguing matchup there. But if that's everything for you for this section, we'd love to move on to this bottom half. In this section 5, we've got the GOAT Novak Djokovic taking on Nishesh Bazwadari. I probably butchered that last name, but this is a guy in Bazwadari they were just interviewing yesterday. I was watching him, and he's talking to the press and telling everybody that on his WhatsApp avatar, he has Djokovic as his profile picture. So this is a guy that, has idolized Djokovic coming up, and really, really exciting to see Djokovic healthy and to see if he can perhaps make a run. We also have a guy in Rally Opelka in that bracket who just took out Djokovic just a few weeks ago. But a guy to look out for, man, is Yuri Lehechka. This is a guy that battled a few injuries in early 2024, came back and has looked absolutely dominant. And in this draw here, right, there's a guy who could fight Grigor Dimitrov, who he just played not too long ago and absolutely worked him. So I would love to see a Yuri Lehechka run here in this bracket, but it seems pretty straightforward that we're going to have a Novak Djokovic reaching the quarterfinals here. But I would love to hear your thoughts on this section here.
Yeah, so this section's, and I like this section for Novak. Love Novak as a GOAT. Him playing the young up-and-coming American who's got some potential, but I like Djokovic there. And then Opelka. Opelka's an exciting guy, as you see. He's got a huge serve, tall guy, just coming off that win. And, he is definitely a guy that can make a run. Obviously, he's coming off the injury, but if he were to play Djokovic, I still like Opelka. I still like Djokovic in that. But like you said, Jiri Lehechka, that's a guy too. He's a pretty solid player. Another guy who's big year for him. And also Thomas Mahach. That's a guy that too, he could make a run. He's had a pretty solid year last year. I think he wins his first round matchup. And then go from there. So we'll see what happens there. But I do love that for Djokovic. And, of course, we would all love to see Djokovic make it to the semifinals or finals. So very favorable draw for him right there.
Yeah, I would say in this section, it's a very favorable draw. But in this section 6, right, obviously you've got Carlos Alcaraz, who, if I'm not mistaken, would see Djokovic in the quarterfinals if everything pans out. But also in the section 6, you got Jack Draper, man, the young guy out of the UK who, again, so well rounded, is on the come up, and it seems like year after year he's just improving just a little bit more. Obviously, you have Sebastian Corda, who just made a finals on the ATP Tour this past week. But yeah, man, I think a lot of people really are sleeping on Carlos here. Obviously he's plus 350 to win the tournament. I definitely think that there's value there. Obviously, he's going to have to get through quite a bit of cats to get there, right? We're talking about a guy in Carlos who's going to have to get through Djokovic and perhaps Zverev to get to the finals, right? So, yeah, super interesting section there. But any hot takes on this section 6? If Jack Draper makes the 4th round, you see him taking Carlos's his G's or what?
Is Dimitrov? Is he in the section 5 or section 6?
Dimitrov is in section 5 with Djokovic. Yeah.
I didn't want to. I was looking at the section a little wrong. I didn't want to overlook him. Dimitrov's a guy that I've always, he's got all the talent in the world, and he's very. You have to win a Grand Slam, but if there's one guy that would be cool to see win one Grand Slam before the end of the year, he's one of them. He's got all the talent, and he can make a run. He can make a run to the semifinals as well, and he could. If he's playing well, he could pretty much beat most of these guys. But there's just you have to be on your game. But Jack Draper, he's a guy coming into last year. Obviously, he's got a lot of talent. This is a big year for Jack. And the problem with Jack is he cramps up a lot. U.S. Open, he was cramping up a lot. But in this section also, I love Sebi Korda. Sebi Korda is, one of my favorite players too. Obviously, just a big, tall guy. It would be cool to see him make a run. But, yeah, I see Carlos Alcaraz in this section. Carlos, as you know, everyone loves Carlos. Carlos is a great face for tennis. When it comes to Sinner being the favorite in this, I think it's just Sinner is just he's just on his top of his game right now. That's not saying that Carlos isn't top, but, Carlos has all the emotion. He plays with the fun. And I love his style. I love the way he plays. Sinner's more, to himself. But, would love to see Carlos make the semis here. And even if it's the finals and there's him versus Sinner, that would be a pretty cool thing to see. So
1000%, man. 1000%. Yeah, no. So we'll see, man. I mean, it's just so interesting because entering 2024, it was, Sinner and Alcaraz really neck and neck. And it seems like towards the end of 2024, we kind of saw a little bit of that separation there. And the odds show, right, where Sinner's plus 110 to win the tournament and Carlos is plus 350. So you just can't count out Carlos, man. He's got all the physical attributes in the world. And I obviously would not be surprised if we see him win Australian Open this year. But
yeah, and if we're talking about into, I still think that Sinner overall on the hard court is I would put him ahead. But if we're looking at the odds for French and Wimbledon, you got to put Carlos at the top of that. But yeah, that's going to be. We'll see how that plays out. But obviously, Carlos has the game to do it. He's healthy. He's had some time to rest, so there shouldn't be any reason why he shouldn't be able to make it pretty far.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you kind of touched on Sebi Korda, man. I feel like he's one of those Americans that is so forgotten about, right? I mean, we always talk about Fritz and Tiafoe and Tommy Paul and Ben Shelton, but I mean, this guy Korda, right? If I'm not mistaken, he's ranked in the top 25. So, when you talk about USA tennis, man, I can't remember the last time there were this many guys, in that top 50. So, really exciting stuff here. Let's just see if anyone can get and achieve that next level of that Sinner and Alcaraz bracket, but. If you had nothing else on this section, I'd love to move on to section 7, where we've got a few studs, right? I mean, you've got a guy in Tommy Paul there, Casper Ruud, you can never count out in really high moments. But if there's a guy like not anyone that's gonna really make a splash in this tournament, I think a really interesting story in this section is Nicholas Basilashvili, the Georgian guy, right? I mean, this is a guy that, if I'm not mistaken, was ranked in the top 20 like 4 or 5 years ago, battled a ton of injuries, worked his way back. Very tough matchup versus a young guy in Jakub Mensik, but just a cool story to see, making it back to the big stage here. Obviously, you have Felix Auger-Aliassime, coming off a big ATP tournament win. Really exciting matchups here as well, but would love to hear your thoughts here and who you think may come out of this section.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of Basilashvili, I'm a big fan of the qualifiers, and obviously, if someone gets into the lucky loser too, that's cool. Tennis is always growing, and sometimes players get injuries, sometimes they have setbacks. But this is a guy that I've seen consistently, and years ago he would always, beat one of the top players. Jakub Mensik is the guy that I watched at the U.S. Open last year, and he's 19 years old. I've been following him for about over a year now. He's one of the up and comers that I think could be one of the next gen guys. It's just who's going to take that. But they've played one time in this matchup, and they played last year, and actually in a challenger event, and Jakub won that. But I think I would like to see Jakub go far in this. This is a big tournament for him, but also if Basilashvili won that would be a pretty cool thing. You also have Shang from China and David Fokina. David Fokina is a guy that he's got a lot of talent too. Obviously, he is 25. Some people he's a little bit overlooked, but he's always a guy to keep an out for. And then obviously FAA Felix. Felix just winning that tournament. Speaking of Sepp Korda, he just beat him 2-1 in the finals. So Felix is a guy that people are very high on over the last few years, and just kind of hasn't really lived up to expectation. Does he have the talent? Yes. It's just you got to put everything together, and him just winning that tournament, I think that's just a good analogy. Is a good way to build off of. But we'll see how he performs in this tournament, and I think if there's anyone else from this section, I mean, you had talked about Tommy Paul. Tommy Paul is a guy that obviously made the semifinals last year, and I think I would love to see him come out of this section. Got a big serve. I think as long as he's playing his game, he's got a pretty good shot. But yeah, this is a pretty wide open section, I would say. I mean, anybody could come out of this section, but it would be cool to see, a Casper or Tommy Paul or even, Jakub. So I'm not sure if you liked anybody out of that section, but I think it's a pretty there's a lot of potential in that section.
Absolutely. I mean, even if you look at the old cat, right? Kei Nishikori, former top 5 guy in the world, who's made three or four quarterfinals at the Australian Open and certainly made the finals at the US Open in 2014. But it just seems like, seeing him in 2025 in the end of 2024, this is a guy that seems to be in decent form and can compete. So that's a guy, obviously he's a little bit older in age, right? But I think he's got a pretty favorable first round matchup there, and then perhaps we can see a Kei Nishikori, Tommy Paul in the second round, which would be electric. So this is definitely a super fun table. But you touched on it well, man. Jakub Mensik, only 19, already cracked the top 50. This is a guy that certainly can go into 2026 as a top 25 guy. I see no reason why he can't take that next jump. He's shown all the potential in the world. He's got the frame. He's got the serve. So definitely a lot of potential in this section here. But yeah, man, if that was everything on section 7, final section of section 8, man. Lot of really intriguing matchups here, right? Obviously, you've got Hugo Humbert, who's one of the best Frenchmen in the world, who, him and Arthur Fields, right? And Fields is also in this section, I believe, as well.
Yeah, two guys. When I was looking at the section, those are the first two guys I was looking at. I mean, Fields is 20 years old, and he's got all the talent in the world. I mean, he's young, powerful. So he's got a pretty good first round matchup. I expect him to, win the first 2 rounds, and if they have to meet up, Humbert versus Fields, that would be a pretty good matchup. Another matchup I am looking for that I'm very excited for, Nick Kyrgios versus Jacob Fernley. Nick Kyrgios, obviously, we know the story with him. Such a fun player to watch, and he hasn't played in a year since 2023. So obviously he played against Petchy Card, but that was his first matchup back. But Kyrgios has all the talent in the world. He's got all the talent. He's got all the tools. Mentally, I don't think that he thinks he can win a Grand Slam. I think he thinks he can win a few matchups. To win a Grand Slam, you have to have the confidence. But I think he thinks he can beat many of the top players in the world. But when it comes to Grand Slam right now, it's tough. But I would love to see him win the first round matchup. He's playing the guy in Jacob Fernley, who, he's another college player. I believe he went to TCU. He's 23 years old, from Great Britain. And this is an intriguing first round matchup. But if I had to say, I would love to see Kyrgios come out of this matchup, and I think he does. And another maybe potential blockbuster matchup in this in the third round, we could have Alexander Zverev versus Kyrgios. What a matchup that would be! I mean, Zverev's a guy that number 2 in the world. There's no question about it. If there's one guy that should win a Grand Slam that hasn't, it's this guy. He's the best player to not win a Grand Slam. Let's just put it that way. And if he wins a Grand Slam, he's more than deserving, obviously. Anyone who does is. But this is a big year for him, and I think that, can he win this Grand Slam? Sure. Why can't he? But I think, he's got a few tough matchups, and he's got a tough draw, and you're going to have to play Sinner in the finals potentially. That's going to be tough. But if you had to place Kyrgios in the third round, that would be a fun matchup. Kyrgios is a guy that makes tennis exciting. I know that people don't like his style sometimes, or people say he used to be bad for the game. But although why I don't condone and I wouldn't do what he's doing with the whole Sinner thing, I do think that it's fun when you make tennis exciting. You kind of have rivalries. It makes it more exciting. So I'm excited for Kyrgios' return. Hopefully he holds up and his injuries don't get to him. But, this is a guy I like to see make a little run. But that's an interesting section. Like another section, I wouldn't say anybody's going to come out of that. I think Zverev's going to come out of that section right there. But if you had any thoughts on that.
Yeah, man. I mean, Zverev is a guy that I feel like a lot of people really sleep on. We always talk about Sinner and Alcaraz and Djokovic, but I would say out of all of those guys, Zverev can compete with the serve. He's just so well-rounded, obviously number 2 in the world. And, he has made 2 semifinals here, one last year and one back in 2020. But yeah, man, I think when you talk about his track to win this Grand Slam, he won't be able to see the big 3 until the semifinals, right? He won't see either Alcaraz, Sinner, or Djokovic till a semifinals match. So I think he's gonna cakewalk to the semis personally. In that section, Hugo Humbert and Fields may keep it close, but in a 5-round set, I just think Zverev is going to own these guys. And then if you look at section 7, right? I mean, he's going to have to compete with either a guy in like Tommy Paul or Jack Draper, which I just think Zverev has a pretty clear edge there, and certainly would be a deserving favorite. But yeah, man, you hit the nail on the head, man. Guy in Zverev, he's one of the most talented guys, if not the most talented guy, to have never won a Grand Slam. So really eager to see if he can take that next step. He's got all the potential in the world. He's got all the experience, and yeah, I think him winning a Grand Slam would be great for tennis. Just kind of broaden the horizon a little bit. But with all of that said, I would love to hear your prediction for the finals, right? Who do you have on the top and who do you have on the bottom?
Yeah. So, are you talk? I mean, obviously, it goes without saying who I have at the top. Like I said at the beginning of the show, Jannik Sinner. I'm not saying he has a cakewalk, but I think he will make it look like a cakewalk. I mean, this is a guy that's just on the top of his game right now, and who's stopping Jannik Sinner? And I think this is a big tournament too, to put all the haters to rest. I mean, any hater is always going to have something to say, but we all know what he's been dealing with, and this is just another tournament just to go in as defending champ and be like, look, I got all this on me, and I'm ready to just put that to rest and win another title. With that being said, on the other side,
it's tough. It's stacked, man. I mean, Sinner really has a cakewalk.
That's a stacked side, and if you had Jannik on that side, I would probably say Jannik come out of that side. But it's as the tournament goes on, you kind of get a glance. I would love, for me personally, I think my heart would be like a Jannik versus Djokovic final. I'd love to see Djokovic come out of it. And I think Djokovic wants it. He wouldn't be playing if he didn't. He loves this. He takes it serious. We're gonna see how he does. I would love to see a Djokovic. I'm not sure where he would meet Alcaraz, but I think obviously the top guys you have to keep an eye out for. And I would say Medvedev, have a shot. But if I had to pick, and that section, it comes down to Djokovic, Zverev, and Alcaraz. And if I had to pick one of those guys, I'm going Alcaraz. I don't know why I'm saying an Alcaraz, but I just think that he could have a few tough first few round matchups, or might lose a set here and there. But I think he's just going to build off that. And that kid has a lot of emotion. He just wants to keep getting better and keep improving. So while I would love to see Djokovic, and why I wouldn't be surprised to see Djokovic, Alcaraz, or Zverev in that finals there. If I had to say, I'm going to go Carlos there. And then obviously to win it all,
yeah,
Jannik Sinner.
Man, it's funny, man. I think I'm in the same boat. I mean, it's pretty square, but in this game, there truly are levels to it. And the reality is Alcaraz and Sinner are in their own dimension. Surely you have Djokovic on the tail end of that career, but Carlos is just so athletic, man. And is Djokovic going to be able to keep up deep in the tournament when a match versus Carlos is likely going to go to 4 or 5 sets? Not to mention that if Djokovic does take out Carlito in a 5-set match, he's more than likely going to have to face Zverev in the semifinal before he even smells Sinner. So it truly is a very tough road for Djokovic. But if he can somehow get past Carlos, Zverev, and Sinner, I mean, it would be one of the most iconic wins of his career. So super, super excited, man. That wraps up the men's side. I would love to just touch up on the women's side, man. Hear your thoughts. Obviously, we have Coco Gauff in form as the second highest favorite to win on the women's side. But what are your thoughts there? I mean, obviously Sabalenka is the favorite. You've got Coco Gauff in the mix. A lot of other deeper odd favorites, but yeah, man, I'd love to hear you there.
Yeah. So on the women's side, I mean, the one thing that separates the men's Grand Slams is obviously it being a best of 5. The women's Grand Slams obviously mean a lot more, but with that being said, anybody pretty much has a chance, and that's why it's always good to look at long shots. But if I had to say, obviously I would say one of the top players, and those top players are Sabalenka, obviously being the defending champ, Coco Gauff, just winning the WTA final tour, and you have Iga Swiatek. Iga Swiatek is a girl that She had a great year. Coming into last year, she had a lot of expectations. And did she capitalize on it? No. Um, she won the French, great. That's her best service, but she did not win the Olympics, and that was a big letdown for her. But coming into this year, I think she's got a lot to prove, and I don't look at her like I looked at her last year. Last year, I thought she was going to win all 4 Grand Slams. I thought she was dominant on hard court. I just look at her a little different now. Um, Also, you have Rabakina. Rabakina has a big shot. She's got also a great shot of winning. If there's another girl that I like, if I would have to say a few other girls to look out for, obviously Kenan Zhang, who won the gold medal at the Olympics. She was a finalist last year. Um, and you also have Mira Andrade. Um, she is a young sensation, 17 years old. So, that's another one to look out for. But there's a lot of people to look out for. Obviously, always looking out for Pagula, Madison Keys, Naomi Osaka, Pavlini. There's so many names. There's so many people. Ons Jabeur. The list goes on and on who I think could win this. Everybody's got a shot. I mean, even a girl like Danielle Kahns. But if I had to come down to a pick, why not go with the favorite here, Ariel Sabalenka? This is a girl that a few years ago, she had all the talent in the world when I watched her, but she had the yips. She couldn't serve. She didn't do that right. And she finally came into her own last year, whatever it was. Uh, but it would be cool to see Coco Gauff or Iga. But if I had to say, I say either Coco or Aria Sabalenka are going to take home the Australian Open. Um, but it's very wide open. We could see a lot of upsets. We could see uh, one of them lose, and I wouldn't be shocked if we saw somebody completely, out of ordinary win. Like we see that a lot happens. The men's Grand Slams, we don't really see that happens. If you look at the Australian Open from like 2006, it's been either Nadal, Federer, now Sinner. You've had Wawrinka thrown in there, but for the women's, it's very mixed up, and you could definitely see a long shot winning this. But like I said, if I had to say, I'm going with one of the
Yeah,
top two
and if I'm not
favorites.
mistaken, Sabalenka won here in 2023 and 2024. So she's looking to
Correct.
make a three-peat there, which would be truly historical. But with the women's side, right, in a best of 3 sets, it just makes things a lot more wide open. It only takes that one service game for a lady to upset a big favorite. So yeah, I would love to see Sabalenka three-peat, but I would be more excited to see a Coco Golf win here. I think that would be great for American tennis. Obviously, coming off the United Open championship there, but yeah, man, this was a fucking blast. Can't wait to break down the next Grand Slam. Was there anything that you wanted to add here between the two?
Yeah, well, to build off what you said about Arya Sabalenka, she looking to three-peat, and you look at someone like Iga Swiatek. Iga Swiatek has been dominant on clay. Obviously, you look at a guy like Nadal. Nadal has owned for winning 14 Roland Garros. He's owned Roland Garros, and if you look at somebody else, Djokovic has won Australian Open 10 times. So you could almost say Djokovic has been just as dominant at the Australian Open as
Oh
Nadal
yeah,
was at Roland Garros. But obviously, you had Iga winning the French Open 2020. She won it. She didn't win in 2021, but she won it 2022, 23, 24. I believe maybe she didn't win in 2021 because it's the COVID year. Um, but she did win, and she's three-peat there. So would kind of cool to see have two three-peats of the top two women, one on hard court at Australia. Um, so it would be cool to see Arya repeat, but it's either going to be her or Coco Golf, if I had to say. And yeah, man, it's been a total blast. It's been fun breaking this down with you. Um, Plenty of good first round matchups, but it's gonna be cool to look back on and see this in the future, and what's gonna happen with this. And I'm sure we're gonna catch up and break down some more matchups. But as far as these matchups, man, just really excited. Like we said, the Rublev matchup, um, and just excited for Sinner and excited for everybody. It's a big season. It's a big time for everybody in tennis, and we're gonna see how these players start the year, and this is a big start to the year. So excited for the tournament, and it's gonna getting ready here to start it actually in about
20 minutes. Yeah, four. Yeah, man.
Yeah.
No, yeah, you hit the nail on the head. And I think, with this era of tennis, man, it's just such a large wave of young tennis players coming through. Obviously, like you still have Djokovic in the mix, but, most of the top seeds are guys, in the early to mid 20s. You know what I'm saying? So definitely eager to see who breaks through this year, and perhaps we see any major upsets. But Landon, it's been an absolute pleasure with you. Certainly would love to continue to break down these Grand Slams. Obviously we have 3 more throughout the year and some of the bigger ATP tournaments. But yeah, man, let's get after it. Absolutely incredible stream, and excited to do it again.
Excited to do it again. It was a great time, and
all righty, my man. Well, hey,
happy Australian
Open
to you.
Charm City Tennis Talk. That's a wrap. Peace.